Hi, this is Kevin Hines. Thanks for joining us in our series on how to master job interviews. In today's lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about the interview process and what you can do as far as etiquette to make a good impression on your interviewer. So let's get started. Now, the first thing you're going to do in the application process is to apply. And immediately after the application, within a week or two, you're going to send a follow-up email. In that email, you want to be polite, keep the email pretty brief, reinforce the skills that you've written in your resume and application, include your contact information. You want to edit and proofread your email. You can do that with an editing service or with a peer who can speak English well, who knows job skills well. And then you want to follow up again within a week or two to make sure they've received your email and your application. So this is basically a template of the email you might send. So start with the subject line that says, regarding an application for the position you applied for and the company you applied for in the email header. And you'll notice that in this template, we've put the important information in parentheses. So let's go and read it. To the hiring department at your company, I submitted a letter of application and a resume earlier this month for the position, advertised in the, and where you heard about the position, whether it was newspaper, LinkedIn, etc. As of yet, I have not received a response from your company. I would like to confirm that my application was received and reaffirm my interest in the position. So the whole point in doing this email is to show them that you care about the position and to let them see your name. So if they see your name in the email, then when they see your application, they'll remember who you are. You can read the rest of this yourself if you have the materials, but you'll notice at the end here it says I can be reached at, include your phone number and your email address, because they might contact you via either of those methods. The next thing you are going to do in the process is receive an invitation to interview. Now, if you receive this invitation over the phone, you can of course accept the invitation, but you still might want to send a confirmation email. But if you receive an email that confirms your interview or asks you for an interview, you definitely want to send a confirmation email. And here's what you want to include. So you want to add a thank you right away. Confirm the exact date and time. You need to make sure that you get those details precise, and it makes a good impression on them, showing your employer, your future employer, that you care about those details. So let's take a look at the email. You can see it's very brief. It's just a confirmation. Thank you very much for the invitation to interview for job position. I appreciate the opportunity and I look forward to meeting with hiring manager's name on the exact date and time in your office. So it's a good idea to include the hiring manager's name or the person doing your interview just to confirm that that is the person with whom you're going to do the interview. And when you meet them, you will be able to talk directly and say their name right away. And then you want to put your name at the end. Okay, so the next step is obviously the most important, that is the interview. And we're going to show you in the next two videos and following in this video how to prepare for the interview and how to answer the questions that you will probably be asked. But following the interview, there's another step, and that is the thank you email. This is quite important if they're deciding between a couple applicants or even a few applicants. It is a really good idea to have your name in the hat so they can still see your name and remember you, and that thank you email will help them. So here's how you can structure this email. Very brief, but important. First paragraph, mention the job title that you applied for and thank the interviewer again. Thank you is always very important. In the second paragraph, indicate the company's name and mention an interesting or important goal or point in the conversation. It could be something that you learned during the interview or something that the interviewer said was important. And finally, at the end, it's not a paragraph, just a sentence, invite them to ask additional questions or write that you look forward to hearing from them again. So both of these are important. So here is what a sample response letter would look like. Dear Mr. or Ms. Johnson. So notice we have used Mr. or Mrs. and the last name. That is very important. I truly appreciate your taking the time out of your busy schedule to interview me for the marketing manager position at WordVice. So we've mentioned the position and the company. I appreciate your candor in giving me information about this position and the company's larger objectives. So that was an important point in the interview that this candidate is pointing out. I do believe that my skills and experience make me an ideal candidate for this position, and I'm sure that I would be an excellent fit for the advertising department. So they're discussing, again, they've included their name and the position they're applying for, the company, everything that, that is important about this interview and their profile. After our interview, I'm even more interested in this position and confident about bringing my abilities and qualifications to WordVice. So WordVice is the company. If you require any additional information, please feel free to call me or email me at any time. Best regards, Kevin Hines. Okay, the one thing that this person could have done is included their contact information, but we don't really need that anymore since they've gone through the interview process. They know their contact information. So this is a very good example of an email. And you can send this email within 24 to 48 hours. So you can send it pretty much right after the interview. So let's take a look at some of the things you can do to prepare for the interview as far as what you should wear, how you should look, how you should carry yourself, and some of the actions you can take in the interview. And these apply to almost any English-speaking country. So we're talking about Western countries, and it might differ a little bit from Korea. So let's look at some of these etiquette guidelines. First, you want to maintain eye contact. This means you should always be looking at the interviewer both while they are speaking and while you're speaking. It shows that you're honest, direct. It's just a polite way to carry yourself. When you meet the person, you want to give a firm handshake. So I know in Korea, it's very, the thing to do is to bow and you can shake hands, but in the West, when we shake hands, it's that firmness, that almost a little bit strong. It conveys a sense of confidence. And we'll see again and again, confidence is a really good trait to convey. So speak with a confident voice. This means loud enough, clear enough. Sit upright with square shoulders, right? And this can apply to any job interview, any country, of course. Sit upright. You can use natural facial expressions. You can smile or laugh when appropriate. So as you notice now, I'm kind of smiling. I'm talking normally. If something is funny, I'm going to laugh at it because these human emotions are going to show them that you want to be part of their team. You can fit in with the team and be a good team member. That is going to be an important trait to convey. So it's not just the most serious thing in the world. You want to kind of reflect what the interviewer is giving you, right? Sort of mirror the interviewer during your job interview. Of course, dress business formal for most jobs. That would mean a suit, a jacket. For women, a pantsuit or dress or skirt. Now, as well as appearance and voice, of course, actions and words are very important. And here's some interview norms in English-speaking countries. So you should arrive a few minutes early. That's just a good idea so you aren't late. And perhaps the interviewer will note that, or at least the secretary can see that. It's going to make a good impression. Don't ask about pay in the interview. We'll talk about that more later, but you don't want to mention anything having to do with pay or benefits. Now, this is quite a bit different from Korean society. In US and Britain, Australia, you won't be talking about personal things that much, things outside of the professional world. So the interviewer was not going to ask you about marital status, children, parental information. That means that you also don't want to include these things on your resume. So you also don't need to give this information unless they ask. If they ask, it's not likely that they will ask about it. It will be more like a friendly thing. Are you married? Sure, I'm married. But it has nothing to do with the job. So just avoid the personal topics. You should also avoid political or religious topics. Don't talk about politics or religion. Easy. Here's a few more tips and guidelines to keep in mind. You want to make your answers very concise. 1 minute to 1.5 minutes maximum. So this is going to show them, the interviewer, that you are able to talk about the important things quickly. It doesn't mean your answer should be yes, no. You need to give a good response. That's why we'll see in the interview dialogue section, you should prepare all of the important information and practice, because putting it together briefly and concisely is the most important thing. So 1 to 1.5 minutes is a good length for a response. Don't use vocabulary that you don't understand. Natural speech is okay. So as some of experts I've talked to have told me, Korean experts who've interviewed in the US, they've said that they've prepared too much with the script or with vocabulary they didn't know, and it kind of threw them off. So use language you understand. You don't have to use complicated language in the interview. So practice your answers. You can use a script, but don't only memorize a script. Be a little flexible. So when you practice, you can prepare with maybe some questions you're not ready for. So you haven't thought out word for word for word. Think of a question that might be related that you need to think off the top of your head, and maybe have a friend ask you that question to prepare for more random questions and not just memorize the answers. If you have a choice, you should always choose an in-person interview over a phone interview. And this applies mostly for non-native English speakers. It is a lot more difficult to sense the nuance and sometimes even the actual questions. If you can see my mouth, if you can see my face, you understand a lot more about the question and how to answer it than if you only hear my voice on the phone. Okay, we're going to talk about some traits that employers seek, and the way you can use this information is to find keywords and talk about things you've done in your job or things you want to do, things you're good at, your duties, etc., that show these traits. So these are very important traits. Self-motivation. So self-motivation means you don't need someone else to tell you what to do. You always find a way to get the job done. You want to get the work done, and you're well organized, you meet deadlines, etc. So self-motivation is extremely important in companies. Hardworking, of course. By telling the interviewer that you put in extra hours, you put in a lot of work on this project, you go out of your way to do things for your company or for your position, you can show them that you're hardworking. Being a team player. Now, as we mentioned earlier about using natural speech and natural emotions, being a team player also means being flexible. So if you can point to times in your past job where you have done something that maybe you didn't really want to do, but you just did it because you're part of the team, it was important to the job, that's being a good team player. Communication skills. You can accentuate your communication skills by talking about public speaking opportunities you've had, or about conveying your ideas in meetings, or anything that shows that you are good at communicating. Communicating is extremely important in the business setting. Integrity and interest, caring about your work. You can show you care by the way you talk about it, by your enthusiasm, by the words you use to describe your job. So use a lot of positive words to show your interest. Geniality is similar to being a team player, getting along with your coworkers. So if you can highlight that, that's always good. And last on this page, time management. So by talking about how you meet deadlines on time and how you organize your day would be a really good way to show the interviewer that you have good time management skills. So if you talk about, if they ask you, what is your routine when you come into work? You could say, well, in the first 2 minutes, I get a cup of coffee. In the next 30 minutes, I check my email and I finish that task. What you do during your day, that shows that you have good time management, organization skills. So that's all for this video. I hope this has been helpful. In the next 2 videos, you can find specific questions and answers about answering interview questions, the most common questions you're likely to find. So please check out those videos.